episode of the Power Ranking Show is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all of your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for football, basketball, baseball, boxing, golf, and more. Bet Online continues to be the fastest and the easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games that are available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts.
And that, of course, is the voice of @Marcus_Mosher. This is the Power Rankings Podcast, a.k.a. the Power Ranking Show. It's time to do some rankings, and we got some Monday Night Reaction, a really good one tonight. Kansas City and Philadelphia, a rematch of the Super Bowl last year. And right off the top, I guess it would most people's take are going to be, boy, the Eagles escaped with the win. I don't know that I would look at it that way, but how do you look at it?
The Kansas City Chiefs are in major trouble. Major trouble. And I know they're 7-3, and they show the graphic of their remaining schedule the rest of the way, and it's a cupcake schedule, and they're going to get to 13 wins, and nobody's going to care. But this isn't a Super Bowl caliber team. It's just not. Elliot, they've been shut out in the second half in 3 straight games. They have no team speed. There's nobody that they can rely on offense except for Travis Kelce. And even Travis Kelce is showing his age a little bit with drop passes and turnovers and not being able to create after the catch. This offense just isn't good, and it's not going to be good enough to get them to the Super Bowl.
Well, I think they came out with the right idea, and Marcus and I talked earlier. I need to spend a different podcast going over my thoughts on this because we ranked the teams tonight, and I want to get to that. But the aversion to running the football in the NFL right now is disgusting. Like, literally, teams could win games if they literally just went to handing the stupid ball off and doing it from under center, I might add. But that's a whole nother issue. But Kansas City had the right idea. They ran right at Philadelphia, and they were extremely successful at it. And when they tried to get it to their receivers and make the receivers beat the Eagles, they could beat them on the routes. But if you can't catch the ball, who cares? And this game wasn't an anomaly. Drop passes has been kind of a theme, really, for the Chiefs receivers this whole year. Am I saying anything that's not true? Am I being too harsh? They were already, I think, the worst in the league. They certainly were close to it. And, I mean, those drops were an abomination. I mean, they were awful. And I'll be honest with you, this is new. I can tell you, you guys know, I watch a lot of old games. Receivers did not used to drop the ball like this in the 70s, 80s, even the 90s. They really didn't. I think the gloves that these guys wear actually make them worse at catching the ball. I'm not kidding, because you're relying on equipment. And, I don't care if that's an unpopular take. You can't drop some of these passes. And I'm not just cherry picking this game. If you guys watch Chargers Packers, I watched every play of that. There's multiple horrible drops in that game. I assume you saw the drop by their rookie first rounder at the end of that game. Yep. Yeah, we'll talk about the Chargers in a minute. But in terms of Kansas City, I do agree with you. The offense is problematic, and we want to get to Philadelphia real quick. I just want to say one thing about the Chiefs here. I tell you what, actually, I will save it for when we get to their ranking. Let's talk Eagles real quick before we move on. We hear resilience used a lot in sports now, but this really was a resilient win. Philadelphia really did hang in there when it was 17-7.
Yeah, and they got 2 huge red zone turnovers, and that was the difference in the game. Even if the Chiefs just kicked field goals there, they win that game. The Eagles really didn't do anything on offense except for one big play to Devontae Smith in the second half. But that's all they needed, right? That was the one play that they got that Kansas City didn't. I don't think this was the most impressive win for Philadelphia, but you win on the road, beat a supposedly good team, and now you are in complete control in the NFC.
Well, they did get a couple of good plays from Swift on little short dumps where he's obviously a very explosive player. It's really hard to get that explosion when you're handing off out of the shotgun. But when you throw the ball on a screen where the running back's already moving a little bit, you can get some of that explosion. And again, that's something that drives me nuts. And the running game was a huge theme in this game because Kansas City came out and had great success with it in the first half, and they were winning and they were scoring points. Not a lot of points, but some points. In the problem with the Eagles were and I was texting you, they're throwing 9-yard outs. Hey, Marcus, why not just run the ball there instead of throwing 9-yard outs? Please tell me the point of throwing a 9-yard out to Devontae Smith on the left and almost having a turnover, then throwing another one and getting 0 yards, then throwing one to the right to Julio Jones and getting 1 yard. What's the point of it? Why not just run the ball? What is the possible advantage
Well,
of
they were getting their butts kicked up front with their 4 defensive linemen. I mean, Chris Jones dominated the game, so they couldn't run the ball up the middle. They tried running sideline to sideline, and the speed got to them a little bit. But they did have success when they were doing some of these, screens across the middle of the field where Swift got the ball when he was already moving. I mean, frankly, Kansas City's defense just flat out dominated this game.
I hardly saw Philadelphia run up the middle at all from the second quarter on. In fact, the one time they did, the reason it got blown up was because Jalen Hurts held the ball in the tailback's stomach for too long. That's why it got stuffed. The only other runs they had up the middle were design draws by Jalen Hurts. I get it. It doesn't work early in the game. That doesn't mean you never go back to it. Anything's better than continuing to throw 0-yard passes. Then what happened when they finally threw the ball down the field? They get a deep shot to Devontae Smith. So, which, by the way, great play by him on that ball, man. That was a tough catch. Yeah. I love the way he slowed up and made that play. He's a really good player, obviously. I think the Eagles did miss Dallas Goedert tonight. That should be said. Obviously, he's been a big player for them. Do you see any weaknesses with Philadelphia the way you do Kansas City?
Yeah, I think their corners are still really suspect, and their linebackers are an issue, but the Kansas City Chiefs just didn't have the players to expose them there, so it wasn't that big of a deal.
Are you really frustrated because you really wanted Philadelphia to lose this game?
I mean, obviously, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm also looking at it as the AFC. I want there to be good teams in the AFC to make the playoffs compelling, and we'll get to it, but frankly, we do not have a good team in the AFC. We don't.
Hey, this is what I was telling you like a month and a half ago, and you poo-pooed. We don't have any good teams. That's what I was trying to tell you.
I think we have 3.5 good teams in the NFL.
In the
they're
NFC.
all in the NFC, and they're all in the NFC.
I will say if Philadelphia lost tonight would have made the league a little more compelling in the sense that then you have Dallas and Philadelphia's matchup coming up in a few weeks at, with the Cowboys at home. Maybe the Cowboys could catch them because the Cowboys' schedule is not hard up until that point. But we'll get to the Cowboys in a little bit. Do you want to say something on Dallas or?
Dallas has a fairly easy schedule coming up, but the back end of the schedule, they go Philadelphia, then they play Buffalo, at Miami, home against Detroit. That's a pretty brutal schedule coming up for them.
Definitely, but if both teams were 9-3 and Dallas beats Philadelphia in Dallas, they absolutely have a chance because Philadelphia's schedule sure isn't easy. So
it's a lot easier now, though.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to ranking some teams. Let's put up the screen. Look at that. Marcus built this himself. Take a bow or not. Okay. Last up, speaking of the Cowboys, they played Carolina at 32. All I want to say on Carolina is I totally agree with Greg Olson. It's really difficult to evaluate a young quarterback when you can't protect him at all, and he doesn't really have great skill players around him. So for Bryce Young, probably need to quit comparing him to CJ Stroud because it's not the same situation at all. Not that Stroud has great shakes around him, but he's got a lot better protection and players around him right now than Bryce Young does. New England Patriots were off. They're having a terrible season. What are they, Marcus? 2-8, 2-7.
Yeah,
I forget 2-8, right? 2-8. And then the Tennessee Titans, who got beat by Jacksonville. I think really the only surprise here, so Carolina 32, New England 31, Tennessee 30. The only real surprise here for me is that I moved Washington all the way down to 29, but it was bad.
I think Washington's a little bit better than this. They just had a bad game against the Giants. They can still throw the ball. They did get 9 sacks in this game, which is absolutely incredible to lose a game by double digits where you get 9 sacks. I think Washington's a little better than this number 29 ranking.
I like it better when you do the split screen so I can see your frustration on the side with the rankings.
I'm
to
too
the
upset.
side of you.
There we go. I'll put it back. Go ahead.
Giants, big win. I was happy to see Tommy DeVito. I don't know about you. Just make some plays, man. It was cool. The Giants, by the way, got all these takeaways and still barely won that football game. Arizona, I heard some interesting commentary from Rich Gannon on Sirius radio this morning about how much Kyler Murray's in the gun and how that can really hurt that offense. And Arizona has been competitive with him, but I don't think this team is really going anywhere. And I am curious how his career is going to pan out. But a lot of time there to decide that. Atlanta Falcons at 26. I don't really know what to make of this Falcons team. I don't think they're going anywhere fast. And the Chicago Bears at 25, who Marcus, I think Justin Fields heard the kind of the communication out there about, or the rumblings rather, about that the Bears are going to evaluate him. That was Jay Glazer's report on Fox NFL Sunday, that this is kind of his test run, whether or not he's a quarterback of the future from here on out. The Bears played some inspired football, but ultimately it was a Fields turnover that lost this game in the end.
Although I don't know how much that was his fault. The right tackle got beat so quickly.
I agreed.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
overall, I'm good with the Bears being here. I thought they were very competitive against the Lions. Fields in his first game back from the injury played really well, so I'm encouraged.
Yeah, and I thought as soon as I said that, I was like, "Oh, come on, Elliot! Now that's unfair," because that was an incredible play by Hutchinson. Fields right before that, darn near hit Mooney, I believe, on a deep ball. I don't know if you saw it. I mean, he just missed him. Boy, that was a tight game in Detroit. But the Bears showing some improvement. That's why they're at the top of the bad team ranking, 32 through 25. Let's go to 24 to 17 for utter mediocrity. Got the Jets at 24. They're finally going with Tim Boyle. Marcus, some people think that's a couple of weeks too late. Jordan Love actually made some really good plays in this game. Green Bay Chargers, I'm speaking of. The Packers are 23rd. I still don't think the Packers really have a chance at the wild card, even though they're technically still alive in that race. Ditto the Raiders, who lost a game that seemed close. I don't know if it was as close as the score, but any thoughts on 24 through 22? Jets, Packers, Raiders at 22.
I'm curious why Robert Saleh made the move to bench Zach Wilson now. He just got done last week saying that he's been playing some of the best football of his career.
Oh, gosh,
He's not
come on.
To me, this is such a panic move by Robert Saleh that I'm actually kind of disgusted by it. His defense got shredded by Buffalo, and he's making Zach Wilson look like the scapegoat. Remember a couple of weeks ago when Robert Saleh said that we've embarrassed every quarterback that we've played against?
Yeah.
And then Josh Allen just comes out and has a massive day against you. I kind of think it was a coward move by Robert Saleh to do it now.
Well, I mean, honestly, why not do this a week ago and quit hyping up Zach Wilson's play when it wasn't good?
If you're going to do this a week ago.
Yeah. Okay. At 21, the Bucks, Baker Mayfield kind of getting into it. It seemed like a little bit with Nick Bosa complaining. That was kind of a fun moment from this weekend. I don't know if you guys were able to see that. And Bosa explaining the rule book to him. 49ers handled the Bucks. We think the Bucks still have a great shot at winning the NFC South. Cincinnati Bengals all the way down to 20, Marcus. Hard to know what to do with them right now. You don't know what to make of Browning. I don't think we can evaluate them off of being, entered into the game at Baltimore last what night? When was that? Was that Thursday? Seems like forever ago. And then the aforementioned Chargers. I mean, drop, and more drops. Eckler slipping, fumbling inside the 5. They lose both in the first quarter. And Brandon Staley just did not inspire confidence in his postgame. I don't know if you saw it.
Did see it.
But he seems defensive. It seems like he doesn't want to take any personal responsibility. It reminds me of a head coach that I know and love.
Well, at least somebody's playing some defense out for the LA Chargers, because my gosh, that defense is bad. I honestly thought I was going to wake up on Monday and see that Brandon Staley got fired, and the fact that he's still there is kind of mind-boggling. That team just needs an entire reset. They've got the number 1 quarterback in the league in terms of QBR by Pro Football Focus, by passer rating, and they can't get wins. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think the Bengals are the most interesting team on this list just because it's hard to say what they are right now without Joe Burrow. I don't think we can put them at the bottom of the heap.
It sucks, but
it might be. It might be. Let's talk 18 and 17 real quick. We've got the Colts and the Saints here. The Colts still have a very good shot for the wild card. They're right in it. They're 5-5. No one's really giving them a chance, but Marcus, they're not out of it. And then the Saints right now are in prime position in the NFC South, but they've got a banged up quarterback. They've already lost one matchup to Tampa, and they might be the biggest Jekyll and Hyde team in the league.
Yeah, Derek Carr still in concussion protocol. Sounds like we might be getting Jameis this week.
He already had a banged up shoulder though, too. Didn't
I know.
Carr? Yeah. Okay.
I have no idea what to expect from them.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see how that plays out. Like I said, though, guys, the Colts are not out of it. They really aren't. I wish kind of they could have won that game against the Cleveland Browns that they deserved a few weeks back. We'll get to Cleveland, by the way, on this board of teams. This is 16 through 9. Got the Broncos at 16, the Rams at 15, and the Steelers at 14. First of all, the Broncos and Steelers are almost identical. They're teams that live off of takeaways, that are making some plays on defense, that aren't getting any good offensive play hardly. People are going to point out Russell Wilson's stats. To be honest, I'd rather play the Broncos in Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh has some big time players on defense. Regardless of the takeaways the other night, the Broncos are doing this with smoke and mirrors, and Pittsburgh actually has definitive all pro level players. I don't know that the Broncos do. Their best player is a corner. I have the Rams over the Broncos, quite frankly. The Rams are 17th in offense, I think 18th in defense. The Broncos are 23rd in offense and 30th in defense. They really shouldn't have won a game against Minnesota. I realize they've won a few games in a row now. Maybe I'm being a little unfair, but I think they're a very mediocre team. That's why they're 16. Any problem with Broncos 16, Rams 15, and Steelers 14 here?
No, probably Pittsburgh's going to be the one to get into the playoffs, but watch out for the Rams. I think they're 4-6 now through 10 games. The NFC playoff, the wild card hunt is wide open outside of Dallas. Seattle's got a brutal schedule coming up. The Vikings just lost. Rams not out of it in the NFC.
One more thing here on Broncos Rams. Matt Stafford proved he could grip the ball and make throws down the field. The Rams passing offense is miles better than the Broncos are. And I know what people are thinking. Yeah, but the Broncos defense, statistically speaking, they're not better than the Rams. They've had a really bad year. They cannot stop the run. If Minnesota would have kept running the ball on them, they would have won the game. Speaking of Minnesota, we're going to get to them right now. We've got Buffalo Bills at 13, got the big win against the Jets. Finally made some plays on defense, although they got help from a putrid offense. Minnesota Vikings are at 12. I think coaching really hurt them late in that game when they should have run the ball. They threw a behind the line of scrimmage pass to Madison. And then the Cleveland Browns, another team really struggling on offense right now with a backup quarterback, but their defense is so doggone good under Jim Schwartz right now. They can win a lot of games. Who do you like the best out of these three, Buffalo, Minnesota, and Cleveland?
I like Buffalo the best of any team on this entire list. Now I know their schedule or their record doesn't reflect that, but man, they've been in every single game. They've lost some really fluky games. Their point differential, I think, is the second or third best in the league. But they're probably not gonna make the playoffs after screwing around against the Patriots and the Broncos. I just think if they're on a neutral field against any of these teams, they're probably favored.
On a neutral field, yes. At Cleveland, I think Cleveland beats these teams with defense, kicking game. I really do. That's
Can
just
Cleveland
the way
score
that
enough to beat Buffalo though?
at home in Cleveland, yes.
How many
In the playoffs, I don't
can they
know.
score 17?
Maybe, but here's the thing. What are the chances Buffalo's getting a home playoff game?
0. They're
Nil.
not getting one.
0. Exactly. Okay, let's talk Seattle and Houston here. They're 10 and 9. We had talked about maybe Houston upending the Jags in the AFC South. That could still happen. They got a really tight win, and I like the win for them because CJ Stroud made mistakes and overcame them. He threw 3 interceptions after I bragged about him the other day on the podcast, only throwing 2 picks all year. Seattle had the loss. Geno Smith came out, and Drew Lock was so not good, Marcus, for the time that he came in. Seattle really blew a game it needed to have to really solidify a playoff spot. Who do you like of these two?
Probably Houston. It's going to get really scary here for the Seahawks. Here's their next 4 games. You ready? They play at home against the 49ers on Thanksgiving. They play a week later at Dallas on Thursday night. They play at 49ers the following week, home against the Eagles. Those are their next 4 games. They could easily lose all 4 of those.
You bet. Lose or at least 3 out of 4, and even that's going to be really tough. They really needed this game against the Rams, and if they won it, honestly, I think they were absolutely a playoff team. Again, Broncos 16, Rams 15, Steelers 14. I've got the Bills at 13, Vikings at 12, Browns at 11, Seattle in the top 10, barely, and the Texans in the top 10. I think it's the first time all year I've had the Texans there, I think. Let's go to the top 8 teams in the league. Not really any change here. But the teams are kind of They may not be jockeying for position in these rankings, but I do have different thoughts about them than I did a week or two ago. Let's start with Jacksonville at 8. They were able to rebound from that just awful home performance against the 49ers. I'm a little concerned about their passing game, Marcus.
Yep,
I mean, Trevor
same.
Lawrence, I still think he's a great player. He had some rushing touchdowns, but you look at his TDINT ratio and some other numbers, it hasn't been a great year.
No, I'm still waiting for that offense to click. Still waiting for Calvin Ridley to really take off. They're just kind of a work in progress, but they've got a huge game against the Texans this week. That should tell us a lot.
Miami's my number 7 team. I think this is a fair ranking, but right now I'd have to say Tyreek Hill's the MVP of the league.
Sure.
140 more yards. Marcus and I did a podcast. We did it on Friday morning. If you didn't catch that, I did my top 5 MVPs. Marcus definitely blew one of those up, and he was right. But Tyreek Hill, MVP right now, number 1.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable the year he's having. Detroit, big comeback win, similar to CJ Stroud. Jared Goff threw 2 or 3 interceptions in this game, and it was not looking good. They were down 12 late in the game. They put together 2 drives, super exciting game. Got some really tough running from David Montgomery. I tell you what, when Montgomery is fired up, man, he is a physical runner. I enjoy watching him play. And then a huge play by Hutchinson at the end of the game. Clutch win. Looking forward to watching the Lions on Thanksgiving. Baltimore at number 5. They kind of escaped in the sense that they didn't have to play against Joe Burrow. They did give up a drive to Joe Burrow and the Bengals, but then Burrow got hurt. I think this is the right ranking. Obviously, it's my ranking. I'm going to think that. But do you think any of these teams should be swapped?
No, I'm good with that. Baltimore's the one that I struggle with because they were losing to the Bengals at home before Burrow got hurt. And then I just don't know what to think about them going forward, especially now without Mark Andrews. I think they are a good team. I don't think they're one of the top 4 teams in the NFL.
I think it's easy to be alarmed about the Lions, having such a scare against the Bears in Detroit. But, it's a division game. And like I said, Justin Fields knows he's being evaluated. He wanted to go out there and show something. And I like the way the Lions recovered from, you give the ball away even to a weaker team, you're going to lose. We see it all the time. And this was another example of that. Okay. Speaking of the Lions-Bears game. Okay. So I've got Jags at 8, Dolphins at 7, the Lions at 6, the Ravens at 5. Here are my top 4. The Cowboys, let's start with them. They're in the cleanup spot. I could move them higher. They had another blowout win. Their point differential is absolutely outstanding right now. They're getting takeaway points, it seems like every other week. The offense wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing or anything. A lot of dinking and dunking. But it's hard to evaluate them when they're playing the worst team in the league. It's hard to say I'm going to leapfrog them on this week.
I'm not leapfrogging them because of their performance. I am moving them though up because of somebody else's performance, or because somebody else needs to be dropped down.
I'm guessing you're going to say Kansas City,
Yep.
who I have at 2. But before we get to them, I have San Francisco at 3. They took care of business against the Bucs. Nothing super exciting. It just kind of a lunch pail, right? Like go to work kind of game for the 49ers. They won it by a couple of scores. They won it at home. They took care of business. I think this team is going to be really tough. I assume you have no problem with them ahead of the Cowboys. I think that's where they need to be right now. So let's get to Kansas City at number 2. We talked about their problems earlier. I'm assuming this is a team. So you would want 49ers 2, Dallas 3, Chiefs 4, then Ravens 5?
Maybe. You could convince me that Detroit should be ahead of them. They beat them in Kansas City, right? I just have so many concerns about this Chiefs team. I'm going to give you 2 quick stats before we move on. It's officially November 21st here on the East Coast, recording this late Monday night. The Chiefs have not scored a second half point since October 20th, Elliot. It's been a month now. Here's the fewest points in NFL history in the first 10 games of the season in the second half. The 2019 Dolphins, that's the team that was notorious for tanking, remember? Trying to tank for Tua.
Yep.
The 2016 Browns, that's the one that went, they never won a game. And the Kansas City Chiefs, this is one of the worst second half offenses in NFL history. And I don't see how it gets better going forward.
Well, I think they will catch the ball a little bit better. I think they will use Pacheco and maybe use McKinnon a little bit more. If I'm going to keep this a little bit positive, my assistant coach of the year would be Steve Spagnuolo. I mean, their defense once again tonight played really good football, and they were all over the place. I mean, yes, Philadelphia scored what, 21 points? Big whoopee. This Chiefs defense is there time and time and time again, and their secondary made big time plays. They almost got a strip sack fumble. The ball just gratuitously popped right back into Jalen Hurts, on McDuffie's
Mhm.
corner blitz, man. That was just, I don't know, gratuitously. How about luckily? And either way, I'm just saying that I got to give the Chiefs defense their due, man. They are keeping them in football games. And when you have a quarterback like Mahomes and a kicker like Butker, along with the head coach and a great defense, you can still win it all, believe it or not. But you might be right. Maybe I should have moved them down. Let's
Eh,
talk Philly real quick. Go ahead.
if Chiefs and the 49ers play at a neutral field, who's favored?
The 49ers may be favored, but the last time I saw Kansas City play San Francisco, it was in San Francisco, and the Chiefs blew the doors off
Yeah,
them.
but that was Brock Purdy's first career start. Actually, he
Okay.
didn't even start
Okay.
that game. He came in the second half. Brock Purdy,
Okay.
by the way, just had a perfect passer rating against Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Look, we know you're mad about the game.
I'm just saying this Chiefs offense is not good. I know they've got Patrick Mahomes, but I think it's going to take people another few games to realize how big of an issue it really is.
It's a huge issue, but when your defense plays this well and you make your kicks, it keeps you in games. That's just a fact. I mean, that's why they are where they are. I don't disagree with you that their offense is horrible right now. It'd be interesting to see. I mean, if their receivers start catching balls, we might be having a different conversation. But I mean, that's part of the game, right? Drops are part of your skill set, so it's not fluky what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just think it is possible for them to turn some of this around by catching the ball. Team speed's another thing, though. That's what they don't have on offense. I think that's a bigger concern. I think the drop passes can be corrected. Let's talk Philadelphia real quick. It's easy to overlook them. It seems like we don't really talk about them every week because I always have them in the top spot and we talk about everybody else. What do you make of this team overall right now? Just season long.
It still feels like we haven't seen them play an A-plus game, right? Where just
Yep.
everything clicks. The offense,
Yep.
plays really well. And Jalen Hurts threw an interception today. He didn't throw a touchdown, really only made one big throw, but they continue to win these games. And I think that's a sign of a good team. Can you win games even when you don't play your best football against good opponents? And they have.
I tell you what, he is so calm when things aren't going well, and even after the game, when Lisa Salters asked him like 5 questions post game. It was a lengthy post game, and I could tell he wanted to get out of there. And he patiently answers each one. He says the right things. He's one of these guys. He says the right things without sounding like he's just giving cliche, I'm going to say the right things
Sure.
talk. You know what I mean? He actually
Sure.
sounds sincere, like he's thinking it through. Look, maybe this doesn't mean anything to the casual observer, but just being around a lot of these athletes, I am very impressed by his composure, period. And it shows when he's in the pocket too. He doesn't panic. They got nothing on design runs from him early in the game, and then they get that big touchdown, and the deep ball was underthrown. It was also a wet night, and ultimately they still made the play, and the Eagles got the win. And I think you're right, and it's something he alluded to. They still haven't played their best game. But again, Jacksonville at 8, Miami at 7, Detroit at 6, Baltimore at 5, Dallas at 4, San Fran at 3. Marcus would like to see the Chiefs, who I have at 2, maybe back around 4, and then Philadelphia at 1. So with that, I give you the final thought, sir.
I said it before at the top of the show. I think the 3 best teams are in the NFC: Eagles, 49ers, Cowboys. And if you want to say that the Lions are better than the Cowboys, I've got no problem with that at all. To me, it feels like the Super Bowl goes to the NFC. Whoever wins that NFC championship game, likely between the Eagles and the 49ers, they're going to be our Super Bowl champion. I just have a hard time envisioning any team in the AFC stacking up against the Eagles, against the 49ers in a neutral field.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I still think I'd be worried if I were the Cowboys playing the Chiefs, but I certainly would not put the Lions over the Cowboys. I wouldn't. So that's the way I see it for now with the best teams in the league. But if you want to hear more about the Dallas Cowboys, obviously you can listen to Locked On Cowboys at Marcus hosts with Landon McCool. Give Landon a follow. Marcus also does a Dynasty podcast twice a week, also on the Locked On Network. He covers the Raiders for USA Today Raiders Wire, which is a lot more fun gig now that the Raiders are actually competitive. And he writes for the 33rd team. He's at Marcus_Mosher on Twitter. And we will see you guys for picks in a couple days. Take care, everybody.